let's talk about what happened last night.
Oh, man.
Week 16 kickoff. National Football League. 3 weeks to go. And two teams who love to just swap paint when they play football. Two teams that are just physical. Two teams that just come downhill at each other and hit you. Two teams with physical running backs and physical wide receivers and coaches who just stomp around the sidelines. And I loved it. This was a great football game last night. I know it was points challenge to begin with, but I just love the intensity. Now every single game is just ratcheted up with stakes, ratcheted up with intensity, ratcheted up with sometimes desperation. That's what we're all about right now as we're entering Christmas week of a National Football League season that's the longest in the history of the sport made in America, played in America. And the Tennessee Titans reminded everybody last night of just how damn problematic they can be if they are healthy and they're coming down and hitting you. Now, Julio Jones is just not healthy. I just, he left week 15 with a hamstring injury, and then he did go last night. But the guy who went last night is the guy who asked Julio to come and basically went on every single social media platform and said, you need to come.
Yeah.
And then when Julio arrived and AJ, offered 11, he said, you keep it. Because A.J. Brown rocks number 11, and that's the number of receptions he had last night for $145 and a score. 16 targets from Ryan Tannehill. Derrick Henry's not back yet, but they've got a couple running backs that just run downhill at you. And this team, the Tennessee Titans, were down 2 left tackles last night. Taylor Lewan out due to injury, COVID-19, resting on top of the Tennessee Titans offensive line, just like it's resting on top of so many other teams. And the Titans just said, who cares? Certainly when they were down early. And then they started taking advantage of Jimmy Garoppolo mistakes, and we'll get to that in a second. But they come out in the second half and they start hitting people in the mouth, and A.J. Brown starts pushing off. He's not getting called for it. And by the way, they let Deebo Samuels do the same damn thing.
Yep.
And I got to tell you, letting him play, it was physical, and A.J. Brown is a problem. And I don't think people thought he was playing last night. I'm one of those people. I was like, oh, A.J. Brown's active. Okay, well, let's see what he can do. And I'm sure there's a bunch of fantasy football owners that were a little bit concerned to play him in a playoff game. Mm-hmm. But what he did in a playoff intensity environment with playoff seedings on the line in real-time football last night, he was a fantasy football playoff hero for some. And he was amazing. He was stupendous. He is all of that. And boy, was he necessary. Because he helped change that game. He helped turn that thing around. And you could see the team feeding off of him in a way they did about and with Derrick Henry. And missed. They've missed that. They've missed that physical nature from a beast who's like, I am a problem for you. And this team feeds off of that. You could see Vrabel feeds off of it. You could see Tannehill feeds off of it. Tannehill with a huge scramble to essentially ice that game last night. To put the kicker Randy Bullock in a position to win it. And that's what the Titans have done. And the Titans are now in a position to win the AFC South. And they did it on a short week after losing to the Steelers and then losing other players and then coming back on a short week. And the team that they beat is an intense, top-notch football team with a ton of playmakers all over the lot. That was red hot coming in, the proverbial team you don't want to see. And the Titans came up with that W. After the game, Mike Vrabel was asked if this was one of the most satisfying wins, not just of the year, but maybe his career.
They're all amazing, but I think under the circumstances of a short week, being down some bodies, against a really good football team. We'll figure out where everybody has us after this week. We were with a funeral for the Titans. Was yesterday or today, but we're not dead yet. We'll come back and we'll play. I guess the Dolphins next, right? That's who we got in 10 days. This weekend's going to feel really good. I'm happy that our players can rest and recover after getting a victory.
Well done, Mike Vrabel. Where do people have us this week? Have you at the top of the AFC because that's where you're seated. But he's in reference to all the folks like, in a position like us with microphones in front of us saying they're dead, they're buried. No, not in these parts. The Colts are the proverbial team in the AFC you don't want to face right now, and the Titans are just putting their calling card down saying, don't forget about us. Certainly if Derrick Henry is coming back as he's expected to come back for a playoff team that is going to make it. They clinch the AFC South if the Cardinals beat the Colts this week, which is a very tall order for Arizona with the way the Colts are playing. Titans and Colts don't play each other anymore. That would be a shame. How great would that be if that was a week 17 or 18 game? It is not. The Tennessee Titans play the Dolphins, and then they play the Texans. Titans are going to win this division. That's what I think they assured themselves of last night. Because all they got to do is be neck and neck with the Colts, who are now a game and a half behind them. That's all they got to do because they've beaten them twice. They swept them. They've got the tiebreak. Titans are going to win this division. Even if the Colts win this week and stay one game behind them, it would be a surprise to see the Titans lose both to wrap things up. Miami at home, and then taking on the Houston Texans. That ain't happening. And Derrick Henry's going to come back, and this team could even have a week off. Don't forget, they've beaten the Kansas City Chiefs. They are very well positioned for that 1 seed. Very well positioned. And they could use that week off, obviously, with people banged up. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here